The first time humans left their homeworld, they thought they were special. They had crossed the void of space, reached their moon, walked among the stars. But the truth waited for them, cold and merciless. They were not special. They were nothing. The galaxy was already full of great civilizations, empires that had ruled for tens of thousands of years, races of living steel, creatures that swam through suns, beings who moved planets as easily as a child moves toys. Compared to them, humanity was a fragile spark in a storm. Humans had no natural weapons, no claws, no armor, no wings, no psychic power. They were soft-skinned and weak-boned. They needed air to breathe, food to eat, water to drink. Every alien race who saw them thought the same thing. This species will not last long. Some laughed at them. Some ignored them. Some pitied them. But all of them believed that humans were weak. And yet, something strange happened. The first human explorers traveled into alien space. They expected friendship, maybe even respect. Instead, they found scorn. Ships blocked them. Merchants cheated them. Armies threatened them. Still, the humans did not stop. They pushed forward. They built colonies on barren rocks where no other species would dare to live. They mined dangerous worlds filled with storms, ice, or fire. They planted seeds in poisoned soil and made food grow. Other races watched in silence. Why do they bother? They asked. Why do they risk so much for so little? The answer was simple. Humans did not know how to quit. Then came the first real test. A minor alien power, amused by the stubborn new species, set a challenge. They called it a trial war. A simple game, just to see how fast the humans would fall. Everyone expected Earth to surrender within days. The alien ships were bigger, faster, stronger. Their weapons could cut a human cruiser in half with a single strike. It was supposed to be quick, easy, a lesson to show humans their place in the galaxy. But the humans fought back. They fought in ways no one had seen before. When their ships were destroyed, they turned the wreckage into traps. When they lost ground, they poisoned the land so no enemy could use it. When their soldiers were cut off, they kept fighting with knives, sticks, even their bare hands. One alien commander wrote in his log, "These creatures do not fight to win. They fight so that even in death, they take us with them." The war dragged on. The galaxy watched in shock. The humans were supposed to lose in a week. Instead, they lasted a month, then 2, then a year. They had no right to survive, but they did. And every time they were beaten down, they stood up again. Every time they lost, they learned. Every time they suffered, they grew stronger. Other species began to whisper. They whispered in fear. Why do they keep coming back? Why do they not break? What are these humans? Strange stories began to spread. A lone human scout ship was destroyed in battle. Hours later, its wreck was found drifting in space. The crew should have been dead. But they were alive, clinging to life in shattered suits patched with frozen blood. On a swamp world, a small human squad was surrounded by thousands of enemy troops. They had no escape, no hope. But they turned the swamp itself into a weapon, collapsing the ground and drowning their attackers in mud and water. Not one enemy survived. On a burning planet, colonists refused to flee. They built cities under the ash clouds, in caves of stone and lava. Every other race said it was impossible to live there. Humans did not care. They lived anyway. And so the whispers grew louder. These are not weaklings. These are not prey. These are something else. The galaxy began to look at humans differently. Not with laughter, not with pity, but with fear. Because deep inside, every alien mind began to realize a terrible truth. A species that should have died 1,000 times was still alive. A species that had no claws, no fangs, no armor, was still standing. A species that refused to surrender was becoming stronger every day. If they could not be broken, then perhaps they could never be stopped. The humans did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of their rise, the beginning of their supremacy. And in the dark holes of alien councils, leaders whispered in hushed tones, "The humans are dangerous. If they survive, they will change everything." No one laughed at humanity anymore. The galaxy was beginning to fear them. The galaxy had expected humanity to collapse. The trial war was supposed to be a lesson, a warning to a young species that had climbed too high, too fast. Instead, it became the first great shock. At the start, the alien fleet moved with arrogance. Their ships were larger, their weapons older yet stronger than anything humanity could build. They had fought hundreds of wars before. To them, this was routine. The humans were expected to crumble. But they did not. The first battle ended in disaster for Earth's fleet. Dozens of human ships were torn apart in minutes. Fragments of hull and burning wreckage scattered across space like falling stars. To the galaxy, it looked like the end. But then something strange happened. The surviving humans did not retreat. They did not beg for peace. Instead, they returned to the wreckage. They dragged broken ships, stripped enemy weapons, and pieced together what they could. Within days, those ruined fleets became deadly traps. Floating mines disguised as corpses. Broken engines turned into bombs. Even shattered satellites were wired to explode. The aliens moved in to claim victory and found themselves bleeding for it. A single human frigate destroyed 3 cruisers by luring them into a field of wreckage. A dead battleship reactivated at the last moment, ramming itself into the enemy's command ship. The galaxy had never seen war fought this way. The aliens were creatures of order. They fought with honor, with discipline, with tradition. Humans fought with something else: desperation, creativity, and rage. Where aliens followed rules, humans broke them. Where aliens saw hopeless odds, humans saw opportunities. Where aliens surrendered, humans refused. One alien admiral wrote in his report, "Humans do not seek victory. They seek survival. And in that survival, they create victories we cannot predict." The war should have lasted weeks. Instead, it dragged on for months. Every time the alien fleet won a battle, humans found a way to strike back. When their ground forces were cornered, they used fire, floods, and even poisoned air to slow their enemies. When they were cut off from supplies, they ate roots, insects, even dirt to keep themselves alive. When they were outnumbered, they fought harder, like cornered animals refusing to die. The galaxy began to whisper again. Why do they resist so long? Why do they not surrender? What are they trying to prove? Then came the story that changed everything. A human colony world was surrounded by alien warships. The colony had no fleet, no defenses, nothing but a few thousand settlers with mining tools. Everyone expected them to surrender. Instead, they armed themselves with drills, saws, explosives meant for digging tunnels. When the enemy landed, the colonists fought like soldiers. They turned mines into traps, caves into fortresses, tunnels into killing grounds. For 3 weeks, they held against a force that should have crushed them in hours. When the enemy finally broke through, they found the colonists still alive, half-starved, burned, bleeding, but standing. The commander of the alien army ordered his troops to retreat. "They cannot be broken," he said, "not without destroying ourselves." The galaxy took notice. Other species began watching humans closely. At first, they had marked the strange primates from Earth. Now, they studied them like predators studying rivals. Reports fill the archives of alien councils. Humans recycle weapons from their enemies. Humans fight without fear of death. Humans endure environments no other race can survive. Some whispered admiration. Others whispered fear. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity was no longer a joke. The trial war finally ended. Not because humans were destroyed, but because the alien empire withdrew. They had gained nothing but losses. Every attempt to crush humanity had cost them more than they were willing to pay. To the galaxy, this was the first shock. A young, fragile species had faced one of the old powers and had not been erased. Instead, they had endured. And endurance, the galaxy realized, might be the most dangerous weapon of all. The humans celebrated their survival, but they did not understand what had begun. For them, it was simple. They had been attacked, and they had fought back. But to the galaxy, it was different. In alien halls of power, leaders whispered, "If humans can resist now, what happens when they grow stronger? If they are this dangerous when weak, what will they become when powerful?" Fear began to spread like a shadow across the stars. And humanity, still fragile, still small, still learning, continued to rise. The first shock had passed, but the galaxy would soon learn it was only the beginning. The war had ended, but the galaxy could not forget. Humanity was still small, still weak compared to the great empires, but the stories of their survival spread faster than light. And with every retelling, the stories grew darker. They were no longer seen as mere survivors. They were becoming monsters in the minds of other species. It began in soldiers' barracks, whispered at night. A young alien recruit asked his captain, "What are humans really like?" The captain's voice dropped low, his eyes hard with memory. "Pray you never meet one. They are flesh and bone, yet harder than steel. They bleed, but they never stop fighting. They die, but somehow they still win." Stories moved through the galaxy like wildfire. One tale told of a scout ship, destroyed and left adrift in empty space. The crew should have perished within hours. But when a patrol returned days later, they found the humans still alive, patched into shattered suits. They had sealed the holes with their own frozen blood, refusing to give up even as a void closed around them. Another story told of a human squad lost in the swamp, surrounded, outnumbered, with no chance of escape. Instead of dying quietly, they turned the swamp itself against their enemy. They cut the trees, poisoned the waters, and collapsed the ground beneath their foes. Entire battalions drowned in mud while the humans slipped away into the mist. And then there was a colony on a frozen wasteland. The temperature dropped so low that even machines froze solid. The air was poisoned. No other species dared to land. But when scouts visited years later, they found a thriving settlement. Humans had built cities under the ice, powered by volcanoes and stubborn will. "Impossible," the aliens whispered. But the humans had done it anyway. The galaxy began to look at Earth's children in a new light. To the weak species, the prey, the enslaved, the forgotten, humans became heroes. They were proof that even the fragile could fight back, that survival was possible even against giants. But to the strong empires, the predators, the rulers, humans became nightmares. If they can endure the impossible now, alien leaders asked, what will happen when they grow stronger? Fear spread, not just of humanity's strength, but of their nature. Aliens could understand power. They respected weapons, ships, armies. But what they could not understand was the human spirit, the refusal to surrender, the ability to turn suffering into fuel. One alien scholar wrote in his journal, "We have studied them. We know their weakness. Their bodies break. Their minds fracture. And yet, when broken, they do not end. They transform. They rise again, harder, sharper, more dangerous. I fear no weapon, but I fear that which cannot die." In the great markets of the galaxy, traders began to tell each other to avoid humans. "Do not bargain with them," they said. "If you cheat them, they will remember. If you strike them, they will return. If you think they are weak, you will not live long enough to learn otherwise." In the barracks of alien armies, commanders gave warnings before battle. Do not corner them. Do not let them fight with their backs to the wall, for that is when humans are most dangerous. And in the quiet halls of alien councils, leaders whisper behind closed doors, "These humans are not prey. They are the storm that grows in silence." Even among the common people of the galaxy, the fear grew. Parents told their children stories of monsters that came in the night. Not beasts with claws, not demons with fire, but pale, soft creatures with 2 eyes and endless will. "Do not wander too far," they warned. "The humans will find you." But not all the stories were born of fear. Some were born of respect. Among the enslaved races, hope began to rise. They dreamed of humans as liberators, a people who could challenge the great empires, a people who would not bow, would not break, would not kneel. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's balance trembled. And it trembled not because humanity was mighty, but because humanity was relentless. The humans themselves did not see it this way. They were too busy building, too busy surviving. They did not know the tales whispered in alien tongues. They did not know they had become legends of Fae. But the galaxy knew. The galaxy remembered. Every empire understood a truth that chilled them. Humanity had not yet reached its full strength. They were still young, still learning, still rising. And already they were unstoppable. The fear spread, and with it came a question that no alien dared to speak aloud. If this is what humans are now, what will they become tomorrow? The galaxy could no longer ignore humanity. What began as whispers in shadows had become fear in daylight. The stories were too many, the warnings too loud. The great empires gathered. In their halls of power, in chambers carved from crystal, steel, and light, they spoke of one thing only: humans. They are dangerous. They are reckless. They are too stubborn to control. And so, an alliance was formed. An alliance not of friendship, but of fear. It was called the Pact of Silence, a union of the galaxy's strongest powers, sworn to contain the rising humans before it was too late. Their plan was simple: block human trade, ban human colonies, isolate them, starve them until they broke. But fear makes liars, and lies spread faster than truth. The Pact sent envoys to every corner of the galaxy, whispering poison into alien ears. Humans are plague bearers, they said. Where they go, war follows. They will take your worlds, your homes, your lives. They do not seek peace. They seek domination. And slowly, the galaxy turned its back. Ships that once traded with Earth no longer came. Markets that once welcomed human goods now closed their doors. Colonies that had just begun to thrive suddenly found themselves cut off, alone, without supplies. For the first time since stepping into the stars, humanity felt truly isolated. On Mars, protests filled the streets. On Earth, leaders argued. Some cried out for surrender. Others demanded war. But in the silence, something stronger grew. The colonies looked to each other, and to Earth. Old rivalries, nation against nation, world against world, began to fade. For the first time in history, humanity stood as one. They built fleets together. They shared knowledge. They swore an oath: no one decides our limits but us. And though the Pact had hoped to divide them, the opposite happened. The chains of fear only made humanity sharper, harder, more united. Still, the weight of the galaxy pressed down. A young colony on the edge of known space sent out a desperate signal: we are starving. The Pact has cut us off. Our children are dying. No help came. No ships arrived. But the colonists did not surrender. They turned their farms into fortresses. They grew food in secret tunnels, drank water pulled from poisoned soil, and built weapons from mining tools. When Pact soldiers came to take their world, the colonists fought. They lost thousands, but the enemy lost more. And when the smoke cleared, the colony still stood. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Humans were not breaking under the weight of the Pact. They were becoming stronger. The empires grew restless. They adapt too quickly, one counselor whispered. We must strike harder. If we do nothing, they will rise beyond us, said another. But others shook their heads. They are still weak. They cannot face us all. And so the Pact tightened its grip. More blockades, more propaganda, more laws to strangle humanity's growth. Every act of oppression was meant to suffocate Earth's children, but instead it fanned the fire of their will. On Earth, a new voice rose above the chaos, a leader who spoke not of fear, but of unity, who said, they call us plague, but it is not we who spread war, it is their fear. They call us weak, but it is not we who tremble, it is they. Remember this, we are not victims. We are the storm they cannot control. And across the stars, billions listened. The galaxy had hoped to isolate humanity. Instead, they had created something far worse. They had created an enemy who no longer saw itself as many nations, but as one people. An enemy who did not beg for peace, but prepared for war. The turning point had arrived. The Pact of Silence looked down at Earth and saw a species they thought was fragile. But what they had truly created was something unbreakable. And in the dark halls of alien councils, leaders whispered in unease, we may have made a mistake. Because humanity had stopped being a joke. They had stopped being prey. They were rising, and the galaxy could feel the storm on the horizon. The Great War was coming, and humanity would not enter it as victims. They would enter it as survivors ready to become conquerors. The storm finally broke. The Pact of Silence, tired of waiting, tired of whispers, decided to strike. They sent their fleets, hundreds of ships, massive vessels armed with weapons that had ended empires before. They wanted no more trial wars, no more lessons. This time, they would burn humanity out of the stars. And so, the Great War began. At first, it seemed hopeless. The skies above Earth and Mars burned as fleets of alien warships arrived. Human defenses fell one by one. Colonies cried out for help as soldiers of the Pact descended upon them. To the galaxy, it looked like the end of the human story. But to humanity, it was only the beginning. Humans did not fight like the Pact. The Pact brought strength, discipline, overwhelming numbers. Humans brought something else. They fought with fire, with desperation, with madness that no alien mind could understand. They turned every defeat into fuel, every loss into a lesson, every scar into a weapon. In space, human fleets used tactics the Pact had never seen. They lured enemies into asteroid fields, where hidden mines tore apart ships too large to maneuver. They sabotaged their own vessels, overloading reactors and turning dying ships into suns of fire that swallowed enemy fleets. Even their smallest patrol boats became weapons, striking from the shadows, vanishing into wreckage, always returning for another attack. To the Pact, humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like predators, wounded but unrelenting, dragging their enemies into the abyss with them. On the ground, the war was worse. On one colony world, Pact forces surrounded a human city, demanding surrender. The humans refused. They booby-trapped streets, toppled buildings onto tanks, turned every home into a fortress. Children carried messages through swords. Farmers fought with hunting rifles. Miners dug tunnels beneath enemy lines and detonated explosives that tore armies apart. The city burned, but it did not fall. And when reinforcements arrived, the Pact troops discovered something terrible. Every single human defender had fought to the very last breath. The city was ash, but it had not surrendered. The galaxy watched in horror as the war dragged on. Every world humans lost, they swore to take 3 back. Every fleet destroyed, they rebuilt from the wreckage of their enemies. Every soldier who died became a story that drove the survivors harder, fiercer, further. The Pact had expected to crush humanity. Instead, they were bleeding, slowly, endlessly, on a battlefield that refused to stay silent. One battle became legend, the Battle of Sol. The Pact gathered the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, determined to strike at Earth itself. Thousands of warships, glowing like a wall of stars, moved into the system. Humanity's fleet was small by comparison, ragged ships, patched with stolen parts, their hulls scarred from years of war. But they fought anyway. For 3 days and nights, the skies above Earth were fire. Human ships rammed enemies head-on. Pilots guided burning fighters into enemy engines, sacrificing themselves to save their worlds. Civilian ships, barely armed, joined the fight, throwing themselves into the storm. And when the smoke cleared, Earth still stood. The Pact had lost more ships in one battle than in an entire century of war. The galaxy gasped in disbelief. Humans had done the impossible again. Fear turned to terror. Reports spread of human tactics that broke all rules. Soldiers who fought even when cut in half by enemy fire. Engineers who built weapons out of scrap within hours. Colonists who burned their own cities to deny them to the enemy. One Pact general wrote in his final report, "They are not fighting to live. They are fighting to outlast us. And they will." The Great War was not clean. It was brutal, ugly, endless. But slowly, steadily, the balance began to shift. The Pact, once united, began to fracture. Some empires whispered that the war was unwinnable. Others demanded retreat. But humanity did not fracture. Humanity only grew stronger. The galaxy finally understood. The humans were not just another young species trying to claim a place among the stars. They were something else. Something that could not be crushed, could not be silenced, could not be erased. And as the Great War raged on, one truth became clear. The Pact had tried to destroy humanity, but in doing so, they had forged the very thing they feared most. Supremacy, human supremacy in space.